Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Paul Featheringale. I am the USC Region Director for the South Carolina Small Business Development Center. We're pleased to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jonathan Bone. Jonathan has many, many years of experience in small business, including a family-run small jewelry business that he has worked in for a number of years. He also has previously worked with us here at SBDC, and through those experiences and with his current business, SoCo Ventures, where he is a business coach, he has consulted with hundreds of business clients on how to start, grow, and maintain their businesses. So you're in good hands. Jonathan is a tremendous resource, and we thank him for being here with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that introduction, and I just appreciate y'all having me come here. This is one of my places that I always feel like at home with small businesses and with the SBDC. What is such great work that they do. They're such a great resource. So if you haven't gotten plugged in lately to them, I would definitely do that and get back with them. But today we're going to talk about productizing your service. Have you ever kind of wondered why it seems so much easier to sell a product than a service, selling that physical thing, right? Than something that we create, this service that we have to provide. And so today we're going to talk about some unique ways that we can make our service more like a product so we can sell better and grow our businesses. And so that's what we're going to look at today. All right, let me make sure. All right, hold on. Then cool. You always got to have one of these. Come on. There we go. All right. So over the last year, 2 years, services have really taken a big disproportional impact, right, through the pandemic. As we've run through that, it really kind of highlights some of those issues around services, because products, we still buy them on Amazon, we still bought them, but the people who were cooking our food, right, the people who were serving us food, the people who were helping us work out and get fit and get in shape, those that may have come in and cleaned our homes, right, those businesses, those service-based businesses took a disproportional hit. And one of those reasons is, let's look at some of those reasons that people stopped buying personal services. One reason that they stopped buying personal services is to conserve cash, right? So when the pandemic hits, or if there's a change in their personal situation, the first thing they're going to do is cut out services to conserve cash, right? So one reason is that. The next is to avoid people. So, through the pandemic, that might have been, hey, we were concerned about health issues. We didn't want people coming into our house. We weren't going to go sit in a restaurant. But this can also be just sometimes like, hey, I just don't want to deal with the customer service. Sometimes, maybe dealing with businesses, customer services is too much trouble. So, I don't want to go down to the restaurant and have to talk to people. It's just easier to make my dinner at home. And then the third reason is do it yourself, right? So maybe we've been paying somebody to clean our home and we decide that, hey, I have time, I have the extra space and bandwidth, so I will just do it myself rather than paying somebody to come do it for me. So these are three reasons why people stop buying services. But then we can also see this on the business side too. So small businesses, small business services providers were impacted just as much. So as businesses transitioned, what's the first thing that typically goes, right? Your marketing budget, you start pulling back. So digital marketing firms and marketing firms saw this. Maybe it's, hey, I've got some accountants, right? So I've been outsourcing my bookkeeping, but now I can do it myself. And so IT, right? So these business services have the same as they do in the consumer market or on the consumer side. So regardless of whether you're B2B or B2C, the same things apply. And so here's some reasons that companies stop buying service. So surprise, number one is conserve cash, right? Same reason as our businesses went through the pandemic, or maybe something changes and we're contracting, we need to conserve cash, right? So that might be a reason why we stop with the service. The other was to avoid people, right? Sometimes it's just easier, again, maybe dealing with the customer service, trying to deal with the marketing firm and tell them what to do is just sucking up too much time, and we just rather deal with that internally. So sometimes it can be avoiding people as well. And then the other is short-term survival, right? So we saw this very dramatically during the pandemic, right? So as everybody went into survival mode, right? So we cut down to the bare minimum. And so businesses get in those situations a lot of times, unfortunately. And so those are some reasons that short-term survival can be a reason for a business to stop purchasing services as well. Now, businesses have kind of a unique way that they evolve. So we're going to look at this real quick. And that is usually they start with some employees, right? So they hire 1 or 2 employees that they're starting to grow. They get some employees, and that's kind of creates their core of their business. Then they start kind of hiring contractors, right? So maybe I don't need to bring in somebody full-time because I'm not that big enough yet, so I'll hire some contractors, get some independent contractors to help with very specific things. And then, oops, went the wrong way. Then they hire consultants. So now maybe I need somebody who's very expert in doing one thing that I really particularly need to do. Maybe it's digital marketing, right? Maybe it's some very specific HR issue of sourcing people, right? Just that one part of HR, I need somebody to go find people. So the reason we want to look at this is because what happens is businesses typically go in the opposite direction when they start cutting services. So they cut out the contractors first. Then they're going to cut out, they're going to cut out the consultants first. Then they cut out the contractors. Because the last thing that they want to do is cut employees or let employees go. Because that's where their primary loyalty lies, is to that existing set of employees, right? They don't have that same loyalty to contractors and consultants. So, the loyalty gets less as it goes farther out. So all of this is to say that service providers of all kinds are getting cut, particularly when the market shifts. So, now it was previously a pandemic, but now, we're looking at inflation. And so things are going to start costing more. So what's going to start happening, right? People are going to start cutting back in areas. And what areas are they going to cut back in first? Most likely it is services, right? So for the same reason, for conserving cash, right? For avoiding people, and they can just do it themselves. And so this is a reason why we want to look at productizing our service, because there's some advantages that products have over services. And the first thing is, this is a great quote from Theodore Levitt, who is a Harvard Business professor. And it still holds true. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole, right? And so that's such a great and eloquent way of saying, when I go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, right, to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit, it's not the bit that I want. What I want is a hole in a board somewhere, right? I want a 1/4-inch hole in a board, but I need the drill to solve that problem for me, because I need to, it will get me to the solution that I need. And so, we can see this in a lot of different ways of just solving that problem. One big one was Zoom, right? Zoom took off through the pandemic, right? Why? Because all of a sudden there was this big problem. Everybody needed a way to connect online, and Zoom was the tool, right? Zoom was the 1/4-inch drill bit. We needed a way to connect, but Zoom was that bit, that was that mechanism that allowed us to connect, and how I'm talking to you now and how we're all getting together. And so that's where, another thing that we also saw a lot of times too, in that the pandemic highlighted for us, is consumers dropping personal service in favor of products. So one of those big areas, and we'll look at that, was Paleo time, right? Now they've dropped back off now since, because they can't keep it up. But during the pandemic, people left gym memberships and purchased gym equipment to work out at home. So whether that was your Paleo time bike, actually all workout equipment companies did really well through the pandemic, whether you're selling free weights, any of those types of things that allowed people to work out at home and to replace that gym membership, went up. And so, that's where you can see very vividly this example of people changing their service, their gym membership, and buying products instead that solve the problem. And so we're going to look at some other examples as we go through today. So hopefully those examples will kind of help you get your juices thinking and get them flowing. And so this is a restaurant. So this is Guerilla Tacos, right? And so we want to see how people have kind of gone from this service offering to this product offering. And so here's a restaurant example, right? This is a Los Angeles-based company. And they were known for, like a lot of the restaurants here in Charleston, for a lively, dinner out. So they had this great ambiance. You had this experience. You go hang out with your friends on an evening after work, have a few drinks, get some tacos. But what did they do when the pandemic hit? Well, they created this emergency taco kit, right? Which is great. So they took what they had and turned it into this product. And we're going to look at this a little bit more as we go through, but they created this emergency taco kit. Another one was mobile car washing, right? So you can see how they changed, how you change your communication to solving that problem that the customers had. So they went from offering car washing services, which people weren't driving that much, so they weren't washing their cars, to a disinfect and protect. Well, we all really wanted to do that. So now we had a different hole. They started filling a different need. So they moved this to the disinfect and protect. And so we'll come back around. So here are the 8 steps for turning your service into a product. The first thing we want to do is niche down. And we'll go through each one of these. I'm just going to go through them real quick here. Then we're going to define our quarter-inch hole, kind of like we were talking about. We're going to find our TVR solution, and we'll get to tell you what that is in just a little bit. You're going to list your ingredients once you have that. Then we're going to brand it. We're going to price it. We're going to preempt objections, and we're going to manufacture scarcity. And so these are the steps into taking our service to a product. So step 1, niche down. This is by far the most hardest step. It is so counterintuitive. A lot of people feel uncomfortable in step 1. And as a person that has a consulting business, I'll have to tell you, I struggle with this. I know the answer, but it is still different. It's hard. And niching down is super important. It is so critical to be the first step, because all the other steps build off of it. And the reason we struggle with it is, particularly in services, is niching down is really hard. Because the great thing about a service when we're starting out is we can change it, right? We can modify it very easily for customers. And so, and that counterintuitive part is, like, we want more customers. We don't want less customers. So you're telling me, hey, Jonathan, you're telling me to only look at a very small subset of customers. And that's what I'm telling you to do by niching down. But when we're trying to grow, when we're trying to build, we want as many customers as possible. And so these two things really kind of play and tug war with each other, kind of pull at each other. But niching down allows us a few things, and we can see this in products, right? Products can't vary their if you're a blue pen, you're a blue pen, right? You can't vary that in any way. That's the product. It doesn't change. It doesn't move around depending on who the customer is. It's just, do you want this blue pen? Will it solve your problem? Yes, it will. No, it won't. So picking a niche is very important in creating that next step of understanding of that problem that our customers have. So like I said, step one is niching down. So here's some things to consider when you're thinking about niching down. So I know we have a mix of some startups and some people in business, but a few things you can consider are demographics. So you can consider, if you're on the consumer side, age, gender, income, right? These are all kind of the marketing things when you're defining your customer. You can think of it the same thing on the business side, firmographics. What's the company size in terms of revenue? What's the company size in terms of employees? What industries do these businesses operate in? So you can think about those in the same way. You can think about life stages, right? So, are your customers in a particular phase of life? Are they just getting married? Are they close to retirement, right? Are they having kids? Are they single? So like what life stage are they in? They're going to tend to buy particular types of products and services in those phases. And the same thing with companies. Startups have a different set of problems than mature companies, right? So are you a startup? Are companies typically in a fast growth phase? Are they mature products that need, very expert and minute tweaking? So you can think about those things. These are some ways that you can niche down. If you're already been in business, one thing you can do is go look at your analytics. You can go look at data of your customers, look at these products across your customer base and figure out which ones are the most profitable, right? So you can use analytics to do this, or if you're a startup, maybe you're just thinking through these and kind of deciding what you want to do. The last one is psychographics, right? So where do they shop? What channel, what Instagram accounts are they following? What magazines do they read? So those types of things there. So here's an example of niching down that I really like. And so this is an exclusive digital agent owner mastermind, right? This was created by Jason Swink. He's a consultant, but he didn't just come and say, "Hey, I'm a business consultant," right? He was a little bit more specific than that. He said, "I work with marketing agency owners," right? So people who own marketing agencies. But then he took it even a third step farther and said, "Hey, I am going to work with digital marketing firm owners only," right? And I think when you kind of see that with this, it's kind of, I look at a Venn diagram you see in the workbook, it's like business owner, marketing firm, digital, right? Those three things combined where those overlap is a very narrow target, yes. But in the same vein, they're all going to have the exact same problem. So as we go through the rest and the next steps, we're able to have a very clear picture of their needs, and we can solve those in a very straightforward way because we're not having to create different things in different parts and change our offering and services for different customers and different customer base. So this is one way. This is one example, great example of really niching down your customer base. Here's another example that we talked about. And so this was Jane Portman. She is a user experience consultant, right? That's a very niched focus. And so she works very specifically with small software as a service company. So not all software companies, right? Software as a service. So these are the ones that are going to be, online. And she only works with companies that are in the early development stages, right? So just after they've got some viability, they've got some product, but what they really need is a big uplift. She knows exactly kind of where that comes in the development cycle. As people, because at first it doesn't look pretty. They just got to get something that works in the software. And then once they need to kind of make it pretty. That's what she does. And so she offers this very specific user experience audit for SaaS companies that are in the growth phase. So those are some examples there. Moving on to step number 2. So now we have kind of a niche. We have an idea of that customer that's in our head. The next thing we want to do is be clear on our quarter-inch hole, right? So this is really understanding that problem. What's that? What's that hole in a board? They don't want the drill bit. What's the problem? What do they really want? What problem are they trying to solve at the end of the day? And so being able to define that allows us to build solutions that are very specific to solving that problem. And so here we have we can go back and look at some of our previous examples. So the emergency taco kit, right? What problem was it solving? Well, I can't go out during the pandemic. I couldn't go out and cook dinner. But what I really wanted was an easy, fun way to maybe make tacos at home. I didn't want to have to figure out about all the ingredients and what I needed to do. And so this taco kit was just really easy. Everything came together. All I had to do was put it together. It was, super fun to be able to do that. So it was kind of that eat at home kind of kit things and services that we've seen kind of popping up as well. And then also like the disinfect and protect from Spiffy was, that was just cars, the essential service providers, right? So this was their core thing is now we're not just cleaning it, but we're disinfecting it, right? Because we want to make sure that everybody's safe and keeping people safe. And so, understanding your customer and why they're coming to you, what they're coming to you for is super important. And so this is step number 2, but it's very reliant on step number 1. So once we get through those 2, we get to step number 3, which is discover your TVR, which stands for teachable, valuable, and repeatable solution. And this is one of those areas where, it doesn't have to be super complex. You can do this on a whiteboard. You can just get out a piece of paper, draw you 4 columns on a piece of paper, use the proverbial napkin. Maybe you want something a little bigger than that. But, you can do it on a whiteboard. Paper doesn't have to be anything super technical. I have a little chart in the workbook that you can work on this as well. So we're going to walk through kind of each one of these, but this is really working through the services that you provide to solve that problem, right? And so I usually like using photography business, right? This is a highly service-based business. And so if we're thinking about a photographer business, the first thing we want to know is it teachable, right? To employees, because I can't scale something if I have to always, as the owner, be doing it or working in it, right? So we'll never be able to scale past your own level of capacity if we're not able to teach the solution to employees to provide, right? And that is kind of that different things with the product versus a service, because a service are typically requires a person doing something, right? And so those are our employees. And so our employees need to be able to consistently provide the same level of service. And so the question is it teachable? So thinking about that through a photography business, if you were looking at those, writing down your different things, is maybe our photography business does wedding photography, and maybe they do school photography, then maybe they do like sports photography or something. But we're just going to look at wedding photography versus school photography, right? So, wedding photography, is it teachable? Maybe not. That's really hard. It's very artistic. There's a lot of different variabilities in those. And so, it might be pretty low on the teachable. Maybe it's like a 4. So, I mean, you could teach somebody to do it, but it might take a long time. You really got to develop their eye, right? So there's just more to it. There's more nuance. It's not super straightforward. But if we look at like taking the old, when I grew up, school photos of your kids, right? It's very teachable to say, set the camera here, put the settings to this setting, put the stool this far away, put the kid on it, push the button, right? Like very easily, very teachable. Everything can be very controlled. And so it's super easy to teach somebody how to take in the gear, set it up, and take all of the pictures of the kid. So that's kind of one of those areas of teachable, right? And that's a lot of times with the services, we're getting paid for our expertise, right? So if we're an accounting firm or something, and you have, CPAs or lawyers, right? Like that's where, is it really teachable? You got to think through some of those things. How are you going to onboard these people, bring people up to be able to provide the service? So that's teachable. The next thing is it valuable? It may be the most, we may think it's the bee's knees, but if our customers aren't buying it, if they don't find it valuable, then it's not worth anything. So, is it valuable? So again, we can look at that. Is it valuable to our customers? So we can look back at our photography business, right? Wedding photography, I would say, is super valuable. People will spend lots of money. They're probably only going to do it one time, right? And it's pictures that they want to have forever. It's memories they want to have forever. So they're definitely going to value that, right? But they also may value their kids, watching their kids grow, right? So they're going to value getting that picture of their kid every year. Maybe it's not as high. So most of the time, so when we get down at the end, we're going to rate all of these on a scale of 1 to 10. So, wedding may be like a 10 in valuable. Maybe the school photography is like a 7 or something. Then the last thing is it repeatable on a purchase cadence, right? So if we are going to scale our business, if we're going to grow our business, we have to continue to be able to get purchases, right? We want customers, and it's easier to resell a customer than it is to keep going and always finding new customers. So there is value in businesses that are highly repeatable, that have highly repeatable income sources, right? And so again, looking at the photography business, the wedding, not repeatable at all, right? Most of the time, hopefully everybody's only getting married once. So that's kind of a one-time deal. So you're constantly looking for new people. The school photography, is it repeatable? Well, they're going to do it annually. So that's every year. So at least it's repeating on an annual cadence that will happen each year. So it would have a higher score. And so this is a really great way to kind of look at and identify those services that you want to focus on to providing your core customer base, that niche that you thought through, because these 3 things are going to allow you to be able to grow and scale. And so it'll help you focus on that solution that is going to best serve that objective. And so like I said, so you want to create a column, write all 4 columns down, write down all your services. Then you would rate each one of these on a scale of 1 to 10, teachable, valuable, repeatable. You sum up the 3, and then the one with the highest score is your most likely your best one that's going to help you be able to scale in those pieces. And so none of them can't be overcome. None of the challenges can't ever be overcome individually. But if you have a good mix of all 3 of these, it's super helpful for finding a business that you can really scale and grow. So that's step 3. Step 4, now we kind of have our target market. We have our services that we're focusing on. So now what we want to do is list our ingredients, right? And you can see this, all products, particularly food products, right? They're all on the package, tell you what you're getting. Usually most of all the packages will tell you, list what the ingredients, what comes in the box, what are you getting, right? So even if I buy a flat packed shelf unit, when I open up the instructions, the first thing it has is a list of all the things that should be in the box, right? So we want to list our ingredients that are coming with the services. So you can see here, back to our restaurant and creating the emergency taco kit. So they've listed what you get in the kit, right? So the kit has 5 pounds of roasted chicken, 5 pounds of carne asada, 1 pint of red salsa, 1 pint of green salsa. So, 30 eggs. I'm not sure exactly what they, how that works in, but my favorite part, it was the 1 roll of toilet paper. It was probably worth it a few years ago for that price when people were running on that and restaurants had those. So that was very creative use of figuring out how to use that. But so you can see how they list their ingredients. And this is one of those things where, products just have that ability to, it's very easy to see what a widget is, what it does. Services are much more difficult. So by listing your ingredients, right, and listing the things, the procedures, the steps, what am I getting? It's much easier to communicate to that customer the value. I mean, you're really trying to create the value proposition here for your product, for your solution, right? So this is creating that value proposition of why your service will solve their problem. Step 5 is brand it, right? And so this is one of those things where we're going to look at a few examples, but services, typically you're hiring a person, you're kind of hiring this ubiquitous, that thing that a lot of times can kind of change around. So by giving it a name really makes it feel like a thing, right? It makes it feel tangible when it has a name, which is why this is so important, right? So, it's hard to say, hey, I need a pen. A pen's a thing. I know what it is. We put a brand name on it. So services can do the same thing. So we want to brand it because it makes it feel like you're buying a tangible thing. And so we can look at some examples here going back through. So emergency taco kit, right? Like that's a great title. It's not just, hey, here's some food. Here's the list, right? It's emergency taco kit. So the emergency gives it some sense of urgency. We're going to talk about that earlier. Kit means it's got things in it. So that's a good one. Here's another one talking about branding it is a sanitize, disinfect, and protect. So that kind of almost rolls off your tongue, but it makes it definitely feel like a thing. And so that's why we want to brand it. So, here's another example of kind of branding and listing your ingredients. This is a company called Data Stories. They really looked at kind of this taking big data down to small business, because what they'll do is you can submit them all your spreadsheets or data, and then they create kind of a story of what you can do with it. But here's where you can see how they've branded those 3 levels, right? So this is where they've listed, you see this with a lot of SaaS companies, right? So here's where they listed their ingredients. They've branded each of the different types. So you have the professional level, the enterprise level, and the data stories toolbox. And then under those, you have each of their listing on what you will get with those. And you see this with, like I said, a lot of SaaS. There's a lot to having kind of 3, kind of 3 levels. It's enough in the customer's mind to feel like you have some choice, but you're not overwhelmed with your choices. It's also psychological selling in the sense that people typically end up in the middle. So you want the middle one to typically be your most profitable, because people are like, oh, I don't want the cheapest, but I want to spend the most. And so they'll typically go the middle of the road. It's just a lot of psychology in that. So if you do that, you'll have those. I think we're going to look, yeah, still got some more to come. So moving along. So we'll give you some time at the end to ask questions. So once we give it a name, kind of make it a thing, now we want to publish a price. And this is one of those hard areas too for services, because they typically quote by the hour, by the day. We have these really big a la carte list of like, here, build your own package type of piece. And that's where it gets really hard, because it's like, well, I could do these things and not that. So being able to publish a price, you will not walk into a store and find a product that doesn't have a price on it, that the price isn't listed. It's not ambiguous with products, right? Like it is with services. So again, we are being able to put ourselves in that place where we make it feel like a thing. It also kind of helps like with negotiations, because it's like, here's the list of ingredients, here's what the price is, right? It's not this kind of ambiguous part. So products publish their prices. It's something that we want to do too. So here you can see this was Encore. So this was a little website that allowed musicians to create personalized messages for people. So it kind of gave them work. So if you wanted to get like a birthday card and have a musician write a song and sing it to them, it cost 15 pounds. They didn't price it. It's not by the minute. It's not how long the video is. It's not. It's just, you want a birthday message from a musician, it's 15 bucks. So we want to publish a price. We're going to look at some more examples here. So this is Scribe. They'll help you write a book. And so you can see down here where they have 4 different branded service packages as well. So they have the publishing for $10,000. They have the guided author. And we're gonna, yeah, that's where so we have you'll have the guided author that they will, you write it, they will publish it. They have the professional where they will write it and they'll publish it. And then they have the ghostwriting one. And so you can see here a few things with like the branding names. So they've called everything Scribe Publishing, Scribe Guided Author, Scribe Professional. So it gives you some idea of what the service is, what the service is that they're providing in the name. So I like that. Also, one thing that I always kind of chuckle at this one about too is, you see this a lot too. It's like, I got my 3 packages, and then on the end it's custom quote. So as much as we do want with services, sometimes we can never get away from the custom quote piece without talking to them and figuring out what they want. But the great thing about packages, going back to the TVR, is that you can create a repeated process, right? You're not always having to change and figure out and continue to move around. Like, things that are more efficient are repeated, are definitely easy to scale. So you can see where they branded it and they've listed the prices on the first 3 packages, which are probably the standard ones that people are going to do. This is also a bookkeeping service for small businesses. So you can upload called Bench. And so it's kind of a combination of software and human services. So you upload your bank statements and they create monthly P&Ls and balance sheets for you every month when you submit it to them. And so we can look here at their product services as well. They've done the same thing here. So they have their micro, boutique, venture, and corporate. They give you a little bit of a hint here on what category, so what niche you have kind of fallen to by how much your expenses are, and then they give you the price here per month, if paid annually. So that usually means one time. It's always a little clever trick right there too. But you can see those. So that that's great, showing your price and giving it a brand name and kind of giving those services. Step 7 is preempting objections. And so so we want to make sure when we're selling, right, that's one of those other things that's different, is a product, right, doesn't have a salesperson. They don't, a product when it's sitting on the shelf doesn't get to have a personal one-to-one conversation with their customer. It all has to be on the box, right? So that's why we see communication, so many things on the packaging, right? They're trying to preempt objections or answer questions that you might have, So that we, it's where, yeah, it's great. We can have one-on-one conversations with our customers, but a lot of times products don't have that ability. So they get really good at preempting and answering questions and really getting people through that sales cycle without having to have a one-on-one personal interaction. And so, here we have an example from the Jiffy car service, like, what's included with everyone? Well, like, what if I'm not happy with my service, right? Like, what if you get done, I'm not happy? That's okay. We have 100% satisfaction guarantee, right? So they promise you're going to love it. If not, hey, they'll make it right. Hey, what happens if you dink my car? Well, that's okay. We're fully insured and bonded. So, we have $1 million auto liability. We're sure we can replace your car for $1 million. Hey, maybe I drive, a Ferrari. I don't let anybody just touch my car, right? Well, that's okay. We have these highly trained technicians. So employees are fully background checked. They at least have 100 hours. So, it gives me some comfort with the technicians and the people that may be working on my car or washing my car. Then maybe there's some environmental concerns, like, hey, I don't want to, ruin the environment just to wash my car. And it's like, okay, well, we reclaim all the water that we use, so we're not putting anything into the environment. So you can see how they've kind of preempted in their marketing any questions that I might have, any concerns that I might have up front, right? And so you can see this from products. You can take those from 9 out of 10 doctors, right? Like, hey, what's your authority? Why do we have that? So here is those reasons. So you want to try to think through, once you have all those, what questions you have. And we all know these as business owners because we answer them 10 times a day, because everybody we talk to, we know what questions we're getting from our customers. So just, get them down on a piece of paper, really work that response to move them along through that sales cycle. And then down to the last step, step number 8 is manufacture scarcity. And so, this one is probably one of those easier ones, right? But manufacturing scarcity is that limited time offer. A lot of times, like with marketing, it's like, well, maybe I'll just do it next month. Maybe I'll just do it next month, right? So maybe I'll sign up for this. Like, so what we need to do is create a reason for somebody to take action, right? So if I know I can always go down to the gym and sign up, what's going to move me to take that step once I've decided that I want to go do that? Well, maybe if there's, hey, this month only, it's 50%, or we're waiving the sign up fee, right? That creates some scarcity in my mind to get me to take action to move. And so we want to think about those products. We want to think about creating scarcity for the customer to make them take action so that they will move when they're buying your product. Because a lot of times with services, it's like they're always kind of going. The one side that we do have to that is most people know that they're, labor-based, and we all know that labor is a scarce, time is a scarce resource. So you can always kind of put that into your marketing. And so so you can see this one here. So we'll go back to one of our originals, which is the Jason Swink, right? His digital marketing mastermind. And so you can see where he has done this, created and manufactured scarcity by saying request an invite, right? It's not like sign up, join my list or whatever. It's request an invite. Well, all of a sudden now I'm like, well, maybe I don't get invited. Well, maybe, how many people are they going to put in there? And so by limiting the size, by creating that scarcity, I mean, he can make the decision to make it as big as he wants, right? But if there seems to be limited resource now, my desire to join that group, to get an invitation, to be part of the club is heightened, right? So I'm much more likely to take a step because I want to, hey, next time you're going to open it up, I want an invite. Hey, there's only 10 seats. I want one of those 10. So manufacturing scarcity is important for getting customers to move. So those are the 8 steps. So we're going to kind of bring that to a close. So, one of those things that you want to think about is why productize our service. I hope I've given you some reasons for that, mainly being that when we the thing that a product has is it cannot shift and move around. And when we as service providers, can change our offering at a whim and try to be everything to everybody, we have a hard time being the solution for a single problem or getting known to be branded for a single problem. But when we focus on a single problem, so when we niche down and when we find that quarter-inch hole, we're able to provide services that are much more scalable and growable in a much more predictable and efficient way. So these are the reasons why taking these steps are so important. Niching down, really finding who that customer is so we can understand what their problem, what their pain point is, right? What's that pain point that I can solve? And then defining that quarter-inch hole. So what is that desire? What's that thing that they're looking for? What's that problem they're looking to solve? Finding our TVR solution, are teachable to employees, valuable to customers, and then repeatable sales. What services do we have? What's the best service that we can look at that's most scalable and growable for our business? Then we're going to list our ingredients so we can communicate that value proposition very clearly to our customer. We want to brand it so it feels like a thing. We want to make it feel like a thing. We can have 3 levels, kind of brand it, different kind of offerings or levels of offerings, but we want to make them feel like they're things. And then we want to publish a price, right? That makes it feel more like a thing, like this has this value, creates the value for it. And then we want to preempt objections. So, looking at those questions that we know our customer is going to have, we want to make sure that we're answering those, that we're communicating our value, we're addressing their concerns. And then the last step is manufacturing scarcity so that they will take action. So they will take that critical action step. So those are the 8 steps to productizing your service. I appreciate your time and listening to me talk. And so it's 1:52 by my clock. So that gives us about 10 minutes for any Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions as they kind of look at those and pull those together and you're getting those together. I would reiterate, remember to fill out the post-event survey. Those are super important for the SPDC. It's such an amazing resource. They're able to offer such great resources and consulting at no cost since they're federally and state funded. But the way they get that funding is by us participating and telling governments that it's super useful and that we use those products. And one way that we do that is by filling out those surveys. So that's important for them to be able to continue to provide services. So make sure that you do that. And we'll see. Carolyn, were there any questions?
We've not received any questions yet in the chat box. So if you have any questions, type those in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask those questions, that would be great. Thank you so very much, Jonathan, for the presentation today. I'm going to stop the recording, but please stay